Hey, good morning everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for July 6th, 2017. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. We still have some rounded behavior going on in the ES right now, and that's an ominous sign here. We have the important 2400 to 2404 half key level right there. That's very important as well, support, and any violation of that level could easily open up a push back toward the next lowest pivot here, which is about 2345s. So this is a significant area of support here that we got to continue to watch. Again, the fact that there's lower highs coming in and a failure of those new highs tells you that bulls just aren't getting paid right now, and that's something to pay attention to. We continue to be at the center portion of this range, so it doesn't really present a whole lot of opportunity at the moment. So right now, just kind of waiting and watching for the next opportunity. You've got to be patient and look to fade edges at the range. Again, 2400 is going to be that very important level to continue to watch in the ES. If we take a look at the intraday time frame here for the ES, we've had quite a sell-off here so far. Price has dropped downward and has been in a steady downtrend. You can see here that VWAP is also sloping downward, S3 sloping downward. So right now, in a clear downtrending market, we're below the previous week's close, and that could lead to more downside pressure again toward that 2400. This is going to be a very important level here. If price retests 2421.5 and into VWAP, given the current downtrending price structure, that would be an opportunity for bears to defend and push this thing to new lows. Above 24.21 could open up a return back toward 24.28 and the previous session's close. So those are a couple of levels to watch as we head into RTH. Taking a look here at crude oil, we'll go up to the higher time frame here using the PivotBoss pivots. And in the higher time frame, crude again has had a sneaky up move after pushing below that prior pivot low. I mentioned before it was a sell new highs and fade those new highs until we get below this pivot low. Once we get below that pivot low, it was an opportunity to watch for signs of rejection and perhaps a bounce back toward 48.76. And so that has played out, but in a very sneaky fashion where it's kind of gone higher. One thing I mentioned, especially in the monthly market outlook yesterday, was any pullback toward 43.78 could provide a buying opportunity for bulls to defend and squeeze toward that 48.76. So right now we did have one big down day here, kind of an inside hold day here, but this 43.76 very important right now. Again, that level needs to hold for bulls to be able to squeeze this thing back toward 49s. But overall, this doesn't have the look and feel of some of the moves that we've seen before, which lessens the confidence right now. Some of these other moves, much more confident about the outcomes. This one here, we got to continue to watch it as it plays out. If we take a look here at the intraday time frame for crude, quite the opposite effect from the ES. While the ES is trending downward, crude has had a quiet up move here from those lows. Very, very modest up push here, and right now we have a very tightly coiled PivotBoss bands where this price here is coiling up. You can see how the bands have narrowed from S3 to R3. That tells you the spread, breadth of the data here has narrowed compared to what it had been, and that's an indication to watch for signs of expansion at some point. So this is going to be a very important level to watch right here at 45.66. Failure to hold it could lead to a return back toward 5-day value. That's 45.32. Above 46s could squeeze this thing into weekly VWAP, which is 46.21, and then followed by the previous week's close there at 46.34. So right now, coiling up and could be looking at short-term expansion down the road. Let's take a look at the NQ. NQ also flowing lower in kind with the ES. This one has a better impulse range to work off of. I'm using the recent pivot low here at 55.50 half, and I'm using the pivot high at 59.07 half with the midpoint at 57.29. That's our key range to play now. And as I mentioned in our monthly market outlook yesterday, this is probably the range that the NQ is going to take throughout the rest of the summer. Doesn't mean that we can't get outside that range. For example, if we drop down below it, but what it means is we're likely going to see most of the action contained within this range. And if price were to push down, say into the LVN at 5,500, this would be a fantastic opportunity for bulls to look to trap late sellers and return price back to 57.29, perhaps as high as 58s on a short-term basis. So that could be the next opportunity to watch out for here. But again, need to get outside the range and look for the trap, and that means being patient right now. So it could be a fade the edges until proven otherwise within this range in the NQ. Taking a look at the intraday time frame. Again, downtrending market. You can see the VWAP and PivotBoss bands sloping downward at a steady pace. That usually implies to sell pullbacks until proven otherwise. Right now holding below the previous week's close. That could provide a short-term bounce back toward one-day and weekly VWAP. That would be between 56.23 and 56.28. So that bounce right there could offer a short-term opportunity, followed by bears looking to defend VWAP for another round of weakness. So right now, trending downward with the potential to see a sell the rips type of opportunity ahead. Lastly, let's take a look at gold futures. Gold in the higher time frame here has continued to push downward, failed to hold 1240, dropped into the 1220s, and we're now near support from recent lows here. We also have recent lows coming into 1200. This range continues to trade above and below composite VPOC. So you can see composite VPOC here at around 1259. Price is traded above it and below it, above it and below it, right? That's been the path. And so at some point here, we're looking for signs of rejection that would suggest a return to value and perhaps a pushback into 1300, followed by a return to value and perhaps a pushback down. You have to continue to push against the range here and trade the edges, fade those edges until proven otherwise. And right now, the market continues to like to trade around this composite VPOC. But until we can go long here, we got to be able to see rejection and find that point where the market is done going down. We haven't quite seen that yet, which means we still may have a little bit more downside until we get to 1200 before we see that rejection. So still downward flowing in the short term with the potential to see rejection back toward 1259 VPOC at some point. So right now you can see very short term here, the previous session's high being rejected and price already pulling back. That could be a precursor to further weakness here. So if we take a look at the intraday time frame right here, again, here's the previous session's high price right there. There's the big rejection on a couple of bases. You have a retest from below, keeps your resistance, and this thing has been flowing lower. Not a whole lot to like about the intraday time frame, but again, failing to push beyond and stay above the previous session's high is an indication that we likely continue lower, at least in the short term. All right, that's it for now. Let's see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck and trade well.